Welcome to the Forward Marketing Podcast, the podcast that covers internet marketing strategies and leadership tactics to move your business forward. With your host, Joshua Jarvis. Welcome to the Forward Marketing Podcast. So excited to have you here for our Marketing Podcast. Again, I am your host, Joshua Jarvis. And I am just sharing with you through this podcast the tips and techniques that basically I was able to grow a multi-million-dollar real estate company with. And for some of you, I gotten emails about this that maybe you don't see the connection between real estate and some of these tactics because I'm giving them to you. I'll try to make a better effort not to use the real estate tactics. But what I'd ask of you is also to open your mind a bit to realize that real estate can be run as a business. There's several multi-million-dollar real estate agents out there, and they run it just like any other business. And the examples I gave are always like pest control, CPAs, and financial planners, and those sort of things. Even if you have an e-commerce store, a lot of the business principles are the same. You need to generate leads and opportunities that can turn into sales. So whether that's real estate or running a cartridge world or a deli, a restaurant, you need people to come in and use your goods and services in order for you to generate a profit. And the techniques that you use that you do to get that are the same across the board. The terminology may be different, the vocabulary may be different, but ultimately the techniques are mostly the same. You could take any of those blog post ideas about how to, and you could a lot of restaurants are actually, I was thinking about this the other day, is that it's not an example I use a lot of restaurants, but it'd be a great example of a local restaurant collecting email addresses, not just to send coupons, although that's great, but they could also become a little bit more part of my family. And if they kept emailing me and I found value in what they emailed me, do you think I would probably go to the restaurant more often? Sure. What we found is that in the suburbs, it's very easy to kind of settle in, and it's so busy, to go to the same places a few times a month. In fact, didn't intend for this. In fact, today's title of the message is 9 of the most effective ways to build links. But really, this getting off on this tangent on restaurants. But just imagine if you had a restaurant and you created sort of your own subscriber list, and you had people coming in, and you could predictably calculate your profit because you had people coming in. I know this family's coming in 4 times a month, and this family comes in 2 times a month. And what if we started running campaigns and could get a person to come in 1 more time a month? All of a sudden, you're in control of that restaurant, as opposed to the very typical restaurant owner who is wearing so many hats, doing so many things, barely making ends meet. So I love the comment that, hey, you're staying too much into real estate, or that I don't see the connection between your real estate example and what you were trying to tell us. And I will do my best to try to change that. But I'm going to ask you at the same time to open your mind to the tactics. And then if it's not correct, then we'll do a whole episode of tactics that maybe I've used in past episodes about real estate, and I'll take them to different, whatever you recommend. In fact, we'll do a reader email podcast here probably in the next few months. So anyway, without further ado, that was a 4-minute intro for the 9 of the most effective ways to build links. And so ultimately, what are we talking about? So some of you have said, hey, this is really technical. Let me break it down for you. For you to rank on Google, one of the key factors, not the only one, according to them, but one of, I think, the most important key factors is links, called backlinks. And so these links, are, if you've ever visited a web page and you've seen some text and you click on the text and it takes you to another page, that's a link. That's all it is. There's nothing super magical about this. Actually, it's pretty magical because it helps you. But there's no technical skill outside of highlighting something and linking to it that's really required here. You don't have to. All you have to know is that if I link to you, it's good. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about, is how to get links pointed back to you what do they need to look like, all of that, and then how to build. So I've got 9 strategies here for you to use to actually build these links. So if you've got a business, chances are, especially if you've got a traditional business, chances are very good the competition is very, very stiff for your keyword. Let's say you're a plumber, for instance, then chances are really good that city plumber, city name like Atlanta plumber, is going to be super competitive. And the only way for you to compete, and maybe you wouldn't want to compete on that, but the only way for you to compete is for you to get some links. Yes, you need content. Yes, you need all the other things that we talked about. Some of the mistakes that business owners make, you need to cancel those out. But you also need links. And so let's talk about links first. So how do you know what's a good link, what's a bad link, all of that, and what can you do? So preferably, the best links are going to be towards the top of the page. They're going to be what's called a do follow link. They're going to have your keyword, and they're going to have text around it that makes sense. So for instance, let's say you're a CPA and your friend is an attorney, and the attorney is talking about, say, 1031 exchanges and how it's one of those things that happen, in real estate where a financial planner, an accountant, a CPA, and a real estate agent can all work together. And so he writes about the 1031 exchange. And then at the very top of it, he puts a paragraph that says, one of the key components about the 1031 exchange, because it deals with taxes, is the accountant. And let's say this person is in the city of Atlanta. So he says, well, accountants in Atlanta, or Josh Wilson, accountant in Atlanta, says this. Well, that's a great link because 1, it uses his name, but 2, it also has accountants in Atlanta. So that's the keyword phrase. We're talking about a paragraph that's at the top of the page. And so that check mark there. Now, what I mean by do follow, and there's a link called no follow and do follow. And it's not super important that you understand the technical difference of them. If your eyes are glazing over already, then don't stress out about it. But a do follow link is not actually anything. All it means is that there's no tag that says no follow. And so when a link has a tag on it, no follow, what that means is that when Google goes and sees this link, it's not supposed to follow it. Now, we all think that it actually still counts, but chances are really good that it doesn't count as much. And so would I take a link that's a no follow link? Absolutely. Would I take a link that's not exactly the way I want? Absolutely. And that's the key takeaway from all this. If nothing else made sense to you, but you have a vendor who was willing to link to you, or you have a customer who's willing to give you a link, take it. Take all the links you can get. The only thing that you don't want to do is something like on Fiverr, where you're paying for really, really bad links. That's a no-no. But every other kind of link that you can get it. And the harder to get, the actually usually is better is for you. The other part of that link that I was giving you the example of, so you've got this great paragraph about the accountant, is the text around it. So that's where you've hit, the perfect link, has text around it, it's the right keyword, it's linking to you, and it's a do follow link. And again, like I said, the do follow versus no follow is it's a text, it's a little tag that goes inside the side of the code when you make a link. Okay, so you don't typically you aren't going to probably do that. Your SEO might do that, your web guy might do that, but typically I don't see anyone really doing that. And the only time you might want to use it is for like advertisers or people. It's like typically like the newspapers won't do a do follow; they'll do a no follow. And now blog comments are the same way because they know that there's spam. So that's what it's typically used for, to kind of discourage people from spamming. So anyway, so how do you get the links? So we've talked about what a good link is. And like I said, even if you're not technically minded, a link is great, right? So how do you get links? Well, one of the best ways to start is actually by doing some competitor research. Find out who your closest competitor is on a local level. Try to stay away from your national competitors. In every industry, there's usually like some national company that's competing, and chances are you probably aren't going to be able to compete with them just yet. So what we want to do is look at our local competitor. And one of the things you can do, if you remember at the beginning, I said links, and I said otherwise known as backlinks. And so there's a number of tools out there that will allow you to actually see links going to your site as well as other people's sites. The one I use is SEMrush, but there's several of them out there. Most of them have a free account. If you go to forwardmarketing.com and look at this episode's show notes, you'll see if you go to Forward Marketing Podcast, our forwardmarketing.com, and click on podcast, you'll see our show notes, and we'll give you a link to SEMrush where you can set up a free account and actually do this research. In fact, I may even record a video on it. In fact, I'm going to put a little note here to do that. But anyway, you go to SEMrush and go to where you can search for backlinks. And like I said, I'll put this in the show notes for you. But you just basically put the email address, the web address inside the little search bar, and then SEMrush does the rest, shows you where all the links are coming from. And so what you want to do is say, okay, look, in order to beat this competitor, I need at least this many links. So you need to match your competitor link for link. There's some ways that you can beat them without getting the same number of links, but it's such a great source of links. So what you're going to find is that your competitor might be a member of the Chamber of Commerce, or might be participating in some sort of niche or forum that matches their interest, and that's where they're getting some links. So you can go there and get the same links. So this is a great place to start. And so you basically just want to do what they do. The second way to get links is what's called link bait. All right, if you remember what we did way back in episode 2, we talked about blogging topics for you. And one of the things was creating this just great content around the whole, first few episodes. We talked about how to create basically unique and great content. Well, that's what link bait is. It's basically like an infographic or report or this amazing how-to, the 30 ways of how to do this. It's one of those kind of great just posts that you want to save or bookmark. Link bait maybe is sort of the 2017 word of bookmarkable, since no one does that anymore. But you want to create a post about something about your industry that someone would basically that you'd want to print off as a flyer for someone. Just so valuable, so useful that people want to link to it. Then you've got to tell people about it. Hey, I've got this great resource. I think that it would really help your readers out. One of the great examples of this is a website called Wallet Hub. And they put out something, I think almost every week, about just different studies they're doing on the market. Best places for families to live, best places for people to retire. And sure, they are trying to game the SEO, the search engine results hard. They really are going after it. But it's also a great example of that. Another great example of this was one of the episodes we did. Came off an infographic that SEMrush did about the SEO mistakes that a lot of business owners make, and I used that infographic for the episode, so that's another great one. So number 3 is interviews. Now, if you remember a few episodes ago, we talked about vloggers, podcasters, and bloggers, and one of the great ways to create content for video or podcasting is doing an interview. And so you could do an interview live, you could do an interview via email, but you could do an interview with someone. Why this is great is because typically the interviewer is going to want to link to that. In fact, there's a local business here in Atlanta that does radio spots, and they do this radio that I don't know if anyone actually listens to. It's like Blog Talk Radio or Biz Talk Radio or something like that, and they interview people. And so they share it on social media. They make a big deal about it. Of course, everyone that gets interviewed says, hey, check me out. And so it's not just a social share, but usually there's a link involved. So interviewing is a great strategy there. One semi-technical strategy is the broken link strategy. And so that's what that is looking for. What you do is basically you're looking for links that would go to your industry that are broken. So what is a broken link? A broken link is where a page is linking to another page, and that page no longer exists. Sometimes it's a misspelling. Sometimes it's just a really, really old thing. So a lot of times I'll see most pages, unfortunately, have this 404 mistake. If you remember the SEO mistakes that we mentioned in one of the other episodes was 404s. So it means file not found. And so if the page does not exist, then what you do is you go and contact the owner of the website and say, hey, I notice your link to this business doesn't exist. Maybe you should update it with my business. And so that's another great way to get that. Number 5 is news jacking. So what this means is basically taking a topic that's going on right now and creating content around it. So a good example of that would be with the recent hurricanes of Harvey and Irma. It doesn't mean you taking advantage of someone else's misfortune. What it does mean is that this is the current news cycle that they're talking about. People, newspapers, other websites, bloggers are all looking for content around Irma. In fact, Google had as the first page something about a chainsaw nun doing some good. And so would they ever cover the nun doing good? Normally, no. But because she's doing it around Irma and they're looking for Irma stories, this is important. What we did is we actually came up with two pieces of content this week regarding Irma. One was for real estate, talking about how Katrina, right after Katrina happened, 6,000 people moved it was actually 6,600 people moved to the Atlanta area, and what that means for migration. So like with Harvey, the chances are really good that they're going to see people move from Houston to Dallas. And like I said, with Florida, they're probably going to move to Georgia. So this was a great article to talk about real estate migration and the need for understanding the market, those sort of things. Whereas in our SEO side of things at jrjarvis.com, my other sort of personal blog, we talked about how Google changed the search results in a time of need, probably revealed some things that business owners need to know. And for instance, their Google search page was full of snippets. And so just understanding how to do that is going to be really important for business owners and sort of how to future-proof the business. And so luckily on the podcast, we've already covered that, how to be unique, and which is like episode 1, I believe. But in any case, that is what's out there. So that's how to newsjack. You basically take when Trump and Hillary were going at it, you could write about, what does the election teach us about, X? And so that's how you newsjack. You basically take the hot news item of the day, and then you write an article around it, and that's another way to get links. My favorite is number 6 is guest blogging, and so it gets kind of some bad press sometimes from Google in a sense that they don't really want you to doing guest blogging. And if you're going to do it in a spammy way, then don't do it. What I like is when people from industries that are across the world, in particular like across the United States, like a financial planner in California and a financial planner in Georgia, exchanging, doing guest blogging, saying, hey, if you're going to invest in California, what you need to know that's different than investing in Georgia and vice versa. I think that's a great opportunity. Or where the industries are related, in real estate, we have inspectors, we have attorneys, we have insurance agents, we had just anyone that touches your house. That whole industry could come up with their own way of guest blogging for each other, and it could be really great. And so that actually would be a great product of some sort but you'd have to have total buy-in where people would create the content and then cross blog and link to each other. So if you're reading this, if you're hearing this, and you have a business, a great opportunity would be, hey, could I do a guest blog post? Let's say you have a friend that's a CPA. Could I do a guest blog post about, X? And maybe it's a tax strategy. Like for instance, life insurance often has a tax strategy associated with it. And so that could be a great, sort of guest blog. Guest blogging, it's pretty easy to figure out what that is. You're basically writing a piece of content for someone else, and then your link goes in there back to your website. So that's what that is. And then local citations. So we talked about this in one of our other podcasts about the local SEO, building your citations up through directories. The nice thing about these directories is they often give you a link back to your website. It's kind of a 2-for. I really like our own personal service, forwardlocal.com, because it builds about 50 citations for you just right out of the box and then monitors it for you. But there's a bunch of services out there. In fact, on jrjarvis.com, the giveaway is like a list of all the directories. I think when we do this, we did it a few months ago, and it was like 89 pages of directories that you could submit your site to. Some are free, some are paid. So, and then one last one, and this is really old school. This is like 1990s, but it still works, and that is joining a forum. So think about a hobby that you have. Let's say you're a golfer. And then you look for a forum, a place where you go and post questions and answer questions and talk about things. Forums are very old school, but forums can actually provide links. Now, the key is that you've got to find a forum that's actually active, that isn't full of spam, But having a link from a forum can also be pretty valuable, specifically if you have a forum or a group that is a public forum, but is available like through your college or through your profession. So, I would look for, your profession plus forum in Google and try to find a forum that you could do that. One of the easy go-tos is called City Data Forum. If you go on that forum, they have questions about the location. Well, who is an expert on location? Well, that would probably be you, because you have a local business there. So that'd be a great place for you to go post. And then in the signature line is your name, address, phone number, and link, right? So that concludes the 9 ways to build links. Just kind of a recap of the links. We talked about how to build, actually what's a good link. And then we decided that ultimately, even though I can give you the clear picture of what the best link is, you don't want to stress about it. You just want to get more links. One of the best ways to do that is competitor research. The other way to do that is create great content that people actually want to share. Number 3 was interviewing someone, and of course, hoping that they would link to you, or being interviewed where they link to you. The broken link strategy, looking for links that are broken on other people's websites and offering to be a resource for them. We talked about that. We talked about newsjacking, taking a topic that's hot for today and sort of molding it into a blog post or a piece of content that someone would want to link to out of that. We also talked about getting local citations and links from directories, as well as linking in forums. And we talked about guest blogging, of course, and really, I mean, the better the content is that you create, more people will actually want to link to it. Otherwise, it's all about outreach. And finally, the golden tip of this long episode is help a reporter out. And so I think I mentioned 8, and the title of this message is 9. So the 9 building links. And so this is, if you've listened this long, then this is the golden ticket. It's called Help a Reporter Out, HARO. You can actually go set up a free profile, and they will send you every day 3 emails of reporters looking for stories. And all you have to do is reply. You click on the link that has the story that you want to reply on, answer a question. And this is a way that I've built several links for my clients and myself, answering questions about the different industries that they're asking about. Absolutely invaluable. I think it's worth it to pay for a premium account, but you don't have to get value out of this. And ideally, what you want to do is you want to stick to the ones that make the requests that are not anonymous. You want to look at what website they're actually writing for. Go and check it out. See if they are actually linking to their sources. And if they are, then that's the ones you want to answer. So hopefully this has been helpful. I would love it if you gave me a review, or you listen to, if you listen to the podcast, that'd be great. Or just contact me, podcast@forwardmarketing.com. And as always, there'll be show notes on forwardmarketing.com. Hopefully I'll remember to put links on this stuff, and you can post your questions there. So I would love it if you gave me feedback. So anyway, thanks so much for listening, and I'll catch you next week.